Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here to talk about Avatar: The Way of Water and its opening weekend predictions. It's predicted to do pretty well, actually. Not too bad. 500 million worldwide. Pretty good. Pretty good. But it is interesting when you take a look at how it's sort of separated down. So this is going to be released on the widest range of screens that Disney has ever released anything on. So that kind of makes sense. And actually, this is not me ragging on it. In reality, it should take home more than that. The fact that it's released in China this weekend isn't actually a great thing because of what's happening in China at the moment. And I think that it would do more in China if the sort of civil unrest wasn't going on, which makes a lot of sense. So we'll dive into this today, ladies and gents. I hope you're all well. This will be just me talking about stuff rather than giving my opinion so much. Because I know people don't like my opinion on Avatar. But it's interesting nonetheless. So Avatar: The Way of Water looks to dive in with $500 million plus global opening weekend box office preview. So like I said, that's good. Obviously that's good. You know, I'm sure most companies want that. The domestic total that they're thinking to clear in one weekend isn't actually good. I'm surprised they're having it as low as that. It doesn't really make any sense. They predict that it'll do like 150 to $175 million domestic, which is actually really low. I think maybe they're lowballing it. I reckon it will do more. So anyway, look, so it begins 13 years after Avatar arrived in movie theatres, conquered and continues to conquer the global box office as the highest grossing release of all time with $2.9 billion worldwide. James Cameron's Avatar: The Way of Water, the sequel to his triple Oscar-winning 3D sci-fi movie, arrives with a global outlook of $525 million. Cool. In what is Disney's widest global release ever. So it is the widest release it will be doing ever. It's never done as wide a release as this. And I'm surprised, mainly because, you know, when you think about Disney and what they own, I mean, they own Marvel. I mean, why didn't Endgame get such a wide release? It's odd, right? I don't know. Is that just me that thinks that? A bit of a peculiar one. It's not, again, not a criticism. More like, where's the justification? Why is one and not the other? You'd think Endgame would get that, but maybe Endgame was its widest release until now. I guess. I don't know. I'd have to try and look into those figures. They're quite difficult to find. I did have a brief look. So no, the breakdown. That's 175 million on the high end on US and Canada. So it's between 150 to 175. And $350 million overseas. So it has tracking, you know, some tracking is 150 million. And if the movie arrives at the low level, it's not the end of the world. And they start talking about other movies, which I don't think are massively comparable, but never mind. So the offshore ticket sales are composed of $250 million plus another $100 million from China, which is always the variable market. And I think, like I said, these are just predictions, but it would technically do more in China if China wasn't going through quite a lot of civil unrest at this point in time. The civil unrest in China is a pretty big, it's a pretty big issue and is a lot wider ranging than what people like to admit. And in terms of its sort of national impact, you know, there's multiple protests nationwide, very, very much similar things, and shouting, you know, like down with Xi Jinping, which is quite rare. Like, that's a very rare thing to see. Small little protests here and there, not rare. As wide ranging as it has been, pretty rare. And I will say as well that they are experiencing lockdowns as well, so that's an issue. And I am surprised with everything that's going on that they even have it earning as much in China, because I don't know, that sounds like it'll impact quite a lot. China's also, be it, you know, a variable market, and it is a variable market, China's not the best place to release a movie because you don't get that much money from the theatres in China. China takes a lot more from the studio than sort of Western markets do in terms of theatre cuts, which is something to factor in as well. But like I said, this is still great. Pretty damn good, to be honest. Now, they also factor in some elements, you know, about like Spider-Man No Way Home and the fact that it had legs and things like that. True. Very, very, very true. But I don't know whether that's a comparable aspect when we're starting to talk about Avatar: The Way of Water. I just don't think it is hugely comparable. Not something that I think. And counter programming, is there much counter programming involved? Not really. Megan is going to be coming out at a certain point as well, which could eat into it. You also have Violent Night. That's been doing pretty well as well. But it's interesting nonetheless. I think the real hit home for this that'll really, really impact its box office is just the inability to have as many showings on a day. So although they're releasing on 52,000 worldwide screens, which is huge, 52,000 screens, I know that the local IMAX to me, which is local probably to about like a 2-hour radius, so it's quite a big catchment area, right? Because IMAX screens are few and far between in the UK. I know that IMAX screen is only showing 3 showings a day of Avatar, which isn't a lot, and that's the numbers that really matter to a film like this. That's where it's going to actually make a significant portion of its money, much more than it will on other screens. So it's interesting nonetheless. Like I say, this is just kind of one of those reports that you look at and you go, oh, okay, cool. I mean, this will be interesting to see how it pans out. And you can see it here, check out the average ticket price from last weekend versus the various formats of Cameron's film. So they're sort of adjusting and changing it as well by the looks of it, which is, I don't know, interesting, I guess. It's this sort of variable ticket pricing that they've been doing. They've been doing it in the UK for a little while, actually. IMAX screens cost so much money in the UK, considerable amount more. Now, domestic pre-sales of Avatar: The Way of Water stand at an estimated $38 million through Monday, double that of Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World Dominion. Top Gun Maverick had legs, so Avatar: The Way of Water is only comparable if it ends up having legs. And at some point in time, but behind Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which respectively opened to $181 and $187.4 million. That's interesting that they're having Avatar: The Way of Water predicted. This is why I think that they're undershooting the domestic box office predictions. $150 to $175 million for Avatar domestic opening weekend isn't actually good when you're looking at it in respect to other films. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and Doctor Strange, $181, $187 million. But I think genuinely that they are banking on people being maybe scared into going to watch it because they're like, oh, it's rated that it's going to be low, we best go watch it. Because I don't see why they're undershooting it otherwise. They need to make a lot of money on this. But never mind, it's interesting nonetheless. It'll be interesting to see the breakdowns and sort of when this comes out. I can't watch this until Saturday. That's right, ladies and gents. I'm going to sit there for several hours with popcorn on Saturday and watch this movie. So I'll bring you my review Saturday. And it will be honest, if I like it, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll tell you. Even if I'm wrong and, my sort of negative opinions of this film are proven to be false by my emotional connection to it, when I watch it, I'll let you know. But let me know what you think. Will it crack $500 million worldwide opening weekend? Let me know down below. Cheers, ladies and gents. Take care.